Yes, you can conduct searches on TikTok and Instagram or whatnot, but when you're really trying to find the shit you're trying to find real quick, you're going to google.com. And so if you don't have an actual presence there, a lot of the work that you could be doing could be, exclusive to the platform, but it's hard for folks to find you in other places.
Hey, Jannese, welcome back to the show. So happy to have you on.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited too, and I'm really excited because, you're typically known for Yo Quiero Dinero, which is a personal finance brand, but we're going to be talking about something a little bit different today. So I'm excited about that. Could you just talk to our listeners for a bit and tell them who you are?
Yes. So my name is Jannese Torres. I am a former engineer, now full-time entrepreneur, and I've recently accepted the fact that I'm an actual content creator, which is still an identity that I'm learning to accept and adopt. So I started my journey as a content creator about 9 years ago at this point, originally as a food blogger. So at that point, I was still working a corporate job. I was feeling very unfulfilled and I needed a creative outlet. And so I've always loved being in the kitchen. I gravitated towards food blogging because at the time, I saw a lot of people doing it. I saw women like Ree Drummond from The Pioneer Woman. I saw skinnytaste.com. These were some websites that I was frequenting as a consumer. And I thought to myself, I want to do something around food. I want location and time independence. I want to be able to create from home and share my desire, to help people learn how to make food from home. And so that's how the blogging started for me. And that led me down what is now almost a decade-long journey into learning how to monetize your content, how to find your audience, how to leverage your expertise and the power of the internet to spread your knowledge and create an online brand.
Awesome. And today we're going to be talking about blogging and blogging in 2022, which is very different than probably it used to be. But I really want to poke holes in all of the reasons why people are going to ask you questions about blogs. And the first one is, are blogs still a thing? Are they still relevant? And do they still really work for, making money?
Yeah, I love this question because this is one of the most frequently asked questions I get from folks who are considering taking my blogging program, the Jumpstart Your Blog Bootcamp. And so when I think about my journey in 2013, there's a couple of key indicators that times have shifted. Mainly that social media has evolved so much in these past 9 years. Back in 2013, you could go viral organically on Facebook, on Instagram. It was just so much easier for your content to get picked up randomly just by the quality of it without having to pay for ads. That is not the same social media that we have today. So when I talk to folks who are considering starting a blog in 2022, I really encourage folks to have a multi-pronged approach for what they are going to leverage this blog for. It's not just a place for you to tell cute stories or to give helpful information. For me, it's like you need to have an online presence on the internet. Right? If you're relying on social platforms where the algorithm changes every couple of months, you are at the whim and the mercy of the individual platforms. When you have your own website, which is essentially what a blog is, you have your digital address, you have a place that is kind of your headquarters. And I think it really helps legitimize businesses because I know for me, I will not frequent a business that doesn't have an actual website. Like that to me is a little suspect. If your business only has a Facebook page or an Instagram or a TikTok, but I can't actually find you somewhere.com, it's going to call into question for me, and it calls into question for many consumers, the legitimacy of this brand. So I'm thinking, first and foremost, starting a blog in 2022 is about planting your flag in the ground in the digital space and having your digital headquarters that you can own and control. And I think it's also an important way to have a visual resume of your expertise and your skills and home base where folks can come and learn about everything that you have to offer product or service wise as a business.
So, and as you're doing that, right, as you're building a blog, obviously you want there to be some degree of focus, right? Because if you're just talking about anything and everything that ever were to interest you, I mean, you and I are both multi-passionate people. We are both Zumba instructors. You love Latin food. You also love personal finance. Like, I love my dog. I love fitness. I love all these other things. I love Spanish, whatever. So there's a degree of like, well, if I talk about everything, is that really going to work?
Yeah, I love this question because, a lot of folks will come with the conundrum of like, what do I focus on? I like so many things. And the first thing for me that I tell people to think about is, what are you good at? Finding out what you're good at, not just what you're good at right now, like something you just started dabbling in, but something that you have years of experience in. I think that's really important.
Mhm.
When I was thinking about starting a food blog, I had a lot of years of experience under my belt cooking. I've been cooking since I was 11, and I launched my blog around the age of like 27. So at that point, I had over a decade of experience in the kitchen, learning how to cook, learning all the ins and outs of, the craft that I was then trying to share with people. And so I think if you don't feel comfortable teaching something, that's probably not a good indicator that that's the niche for you. Another thing too is like, is this something that you've been interested in for a while? Right? Because when we think about creating a blog, especially one that is making money, that is earning a substantial amount of passive income, that has involved years of content creation, of time, of energy, of investment that has allowed you to build a content portfolio that then you can monetize. So it's like, if you're not going to be committed to doing something for an extended period of time, that's probably not the niche for you either. And then I think it's important to do some market research. There are things that come in and out of favor overall, right? For me, I've been able to get into two niches now that are evergreen, that will never go out of style, because guess what? Food is a thing we will always need as humans, right? We will never not need to eat. So I know from that perspective, I will always have an audience for my content. And then money, personal finance. We will never exist in a world that doesn't have some form of currency that we are learning how to use to achieve our goals. And so thinking about the longevity of your niche, how sustainable it is, how much competition there is, these are all things that you have to factor in when you're deciding what lane you want to pick. And I think it's also important too to think about the opportunity to evolve in that niche, right? The way that I started off as a food blogger, I'm not actively doing that these days. I've moved into personal finance. So allowing yourself to explore and evolve as a creative person, you have to give yourself permission to do that too.
Yeah, and also permission to pivot it, to try something new, and to explore what works well for you. Now, when you started your food blog, did you have the intention of growing it to monetization, or did you kind of say, I'm going to do this for fun and see where it goes?
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I had no idea that you could actually monetize it, especially to the point where it is now, where it's a six-figure passive income based business, which is just insane for me to say, even all these years later. I just knew I had a creative bug that I needed to satisfy in some way, shape, or form. I was following, the American dream, the prescription, like go to school, get the job, work the 9 to 5, and it was paying the bills, but I was completely unfulfilled creatively, spiritually. And the blog for me was initially just some form of therapy, a form of creative exercise. Now, once I got laid off about 6 months after starting the blog, I had sort of this moment in time where things slowed down, and I was able to really assess, is this something that I want to focus more energy on now that I have this break, that I have no distractions? And so I took the opportunity in those 3 months to take a food blogging course. I took food photography classes. I was spending hours and hours watching YouTube videos on Google, checking out other bloggers, literally using what folks were doing as inspiration for my own journey. And in that time, I started learning about, how do you actually turn this from a hobby into a business? So one of the things that I learned is like, I got to step up the quality of my content. I can't be taking these crappy photos with my iPhone 5 or whatever it was at the time, with no lighting, with no food styling, and thinking that this was going to be content that was going to stand out. So I invested in a professional camera. I started teaching myself how to take professional looking food photography. I started learning how to structure recipes and whatnot. And so I started to refine my content quality. And then I started to attract partnerships because of that. So when your content gets better, it stands out, you can start looking for opportunities to monetize. I started pitching myself for brand sponsorships. I started looking into affiliate marketing. I was able to grow my traffic to the point where then I could begin to monetize using display ads. And so those things started to build on each other as I got more experience, and I started to learn more about how you turn this into a business. I started taking that information and implementing it in a way that would make sense for my own business model.
And there are 3 magic letters that you've mastered. SEO.
Ah, yes.
So you were waiting like, what is
Yeah.
she talking about? No, SEO, because what you said was, we started attracting brand sponsorships because your content got better. But not only did your content get better, people found it easier, right? So can you just, for those who don't know what SEO is, or maybe they've heard, I need to up my SEO, and they don't even really know what that means. So could you just unpack SEO and what it actually involves, like how you actually tactically improve SEO?
Absolutely. So SEO is the bread and butter of what I teach in my program, because it was, if I had to think about the one thing that really changed the game for me, it was learning about the concept of SEO, or search engine optimization. So in, broad terms, it is basically the science of how you use the algorithm and the way that it works to attract an audience to your content. So for me, SEO started with understanding the analytics, the data behind my existing content. So I use a tool called Google Analytics to assess the performance of each one of my blog posts. And what I started noticing is that the Puerto Rican recipes that I was posting were the ones going viral. And so that was a key indicator that I'm like, I have hit in on something here that has demand and that people want. And SEO is all about creating content that is in demand and that people need. When I started digging deeper, I realized there's not a lot of Puerto Rican food bloggers, period. There's not a lot of blogs that focus on Puerto Rican cuisine. So I had found an area where I could focus in, where there was an unmet desire, there was an unmet need that I knew that I could fill. That's a really big part of SEO. When you're thinking about how you're going to stand out from the crowd, it's about being able to identify those opportunities to create content that is in demand but underserved. And it's very much like how you would, think about starting a business in general. Like, you got to find the group of people who are not being served and figure out how what you have to offer can fulfill that need. Another thing with SEO is keyword research. So when you are thinking about how to actually position your content, knowing keyword strategies like, how should I title this blog post? What are some keywords that I should have scattered throughout this content? Is there a way that I can optimize the images that I have to include keywords so that even when someone's doing an image search, maybe they'll find an image that then leads back to my website? There's a lot of different aspects of SEO. The main ones are the actual content. So there's content SEO, how you build it, how you structure it for the algorithm. There is the technical SEO, which is how your website itself is structured. How fast is it? What's the user experience like? How does it load? And also there's the, how do you structure the URLs? How do you structure the images, the alt texts? And, it's a really a fascinating science, because that's the one area that most of my students are just like, oh, I thought you just go and like write stuff and people find it. And I'm like, I wish that was the case. And yes, there should always be like a innate passion for what you're creating, but you also have to create it in a way that is SEO optimized. And so that's what I help folks do as part of my program.
Yeah, you don't just build the thing, you have to build all the signs and lights that point at it.
Right. That's exactly
so
it.
more people find it. So you're saying that if I, download an image off of Canva that I'm going to use on my blog and I title it untitled parentheses 1, that's not going to help me at all?
No, it's not. You can actually tell Google what your image is, but you have to structure your SEO in order to be able to do that.
Fascinating. And someone gave me that tip once. They said you should never use an image in your blog that doesn't have some type of words in it in the title of it. And I was like, I never knew that.
Yep.
Like, that was never part of the curriculum in business school. Like, of course it wasn't. So when it comes to blogs, right? Everyone's talking about, oh, I'm going to be on Instagram and I have to be on TikTok and I have to start my own podcast and I have to do all these things. I feel like blogging is not in the like hyped mediums that people are all trying to start right now. And why do you think that is, number one? But number two, why do you think blogs are probably underappreciated in that regard?
Yeah, I think the problem for a lot of folks is that they don't actually understand like the true power of having your own home base on the internet, right? Like, all you need is for one of your major platforms to get locked out, to get hacked, and you not being able to reach your audience, for you to realize, oh, shit, this is probably not the best solution for me. I should always have a place where people can come back to if something happens with my social. And I've had experience with that personally. I know a lot of creators who've been locked out of their platforms, and it's like your business can get shut down in a single day if all you're doing is relying on social media. So I think there's still a lot of folks who haven't realized the true value of having your home base. But I think it's also, people think it has to be an either or, that you have to only have a podcast, or you have to only do TikTok, or you have to only have a blog. I think that all of these things can be really complementary to each other. Like, for example, as a podcaster, it was really important for me to have a blog because I want folks to have a place where they can go and like read the episode show notes, the whole transcription of the episode. I want a place where I can embed my YouTube videos of my podcast recordings so that I don't have to send people to YouTube to watch it here, but here to read the post, but here to get the show notes. Everything can be all in one place. And so it doesn't have to be either or. And I think it also is because folks still don't understand the power of SEO. Search engine optimization is a principle that I use for both of my brands. And I think it's definitely been something that has helped my second business grow as fast as it has, because I was able to take a lot of what I learned about SEO as a food blogger and apply the same exact principles to my personal finance brand. And I get discovered by media outlets and companies and all types of people, not because of social, but because they're going on Google. Like, this is what corporations do. They are still using Google.com to find the people that they're looking for because it's just a superior way to conduct searches. Yes, you can conduct searches on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot, but when you're really trying to find the shit you're trying to find real quick, you're going to Google.com. And so if you don't have an actual presence there, a lot of the work that you could be doing could be, exclusive to the platform, but it's hard for folks to find you in other places.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real, that the corporations, right, the sponsors that are doing this have people who work at that company like you and I who probably hate their jobs and they want to get it done as fast as possible and as easy as possible. And they're going on Google because like that's just how it is. Nobody is like really going to spend that much time. They're going to go to the fast and easy way to find something. And you want to be front of mind, front in line when that happens. I don't want to dismiss something you said earlier, which is that your food blog produces a consistent six-figure income for you in your business. Now, a lot of people listening would be like, holy crap, Jannese is so special. I could never do that. How the hell does she do that? And I'm sure you get that question a ton. How the hell did you do that? And I know that it's the building blocks of everything you've mentioned so far, but let's just talk about monetization for a second and how you actually make money with a blog, right? You could have the best SEO, everyone's finding you. How do you get in front of brands, sponsorships, and other sources of monetization? How do you actually do that?
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into the way that I personally monetize my food blog. So at this point, it is all passive. So I monetize through display ads and through affiliate marketing. The way that you actually start with display ads is you have to build your traffic first, right? You can't expect to go to an ad provider and say, hey, I get like 100 people a month coming to my website. They're going to be like, that's great. We're going to pay you like 25 cents a month. That's not going to work. Right. So if you really want to monetize using display ads, you have to have enough traffic to warrant them wanting to work with you. When I started thinking about monetizing with display ads, I wanted to hit the 10,000 monthly reader number. That was the number in my head that I had been thinking about. And it was also the number that was confirmed to me when I started doing research as to like, what's that minimum threshold that people will start to consider working with you. So once I was hitting that number consistently, I started reaching out to ad agencies. So I initially started with Google AdSense. Then I moved to, I think it was Mediavine. And then lastly, and right now I'm with AdThrive. And AdThrive is basically like top tier of the ad agencies, and they require you to have 100,000 views per month. So as my traffic was growing, I was able to get to higher tiered agencies. And now I consistently reach $100,000 in passive income just through the ads because I have about 4 million readers per year. So just for some context around like what that actual readership looks like. Affiliate marketing is great for beginner bloggers because they typically don't have a lot of initial traffic requirements. Most affiliate marketing companies or affiliate brands will just ask you, like, where do you plan to advertise this special link. And so for anybody who doesn't know what affiliate marketing is, it's essentially when you partner with a company, you are going to promote their product or service. They will pay you a commission for whoever signs up for the product or service, and that's how you make money. So they'll typically ask you, where are you going to advertise this? Are you going to do like blog posts? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have a podcast? Do you have social reach, etc.? And then once you get approved, they will give you custom links that you can scatter throughout all of your different platforms and make money that way. And when it comes to sponsored content, there are a couple different ways you can do it. If you have companies that you already know and love as a consumer, most of them will have, marketing department, or some of them even have like an influencer marketing departments that you can reach out to and say, hey, I love your product. I have this platform. I would love to see if we can collaborate on, a sponsored blog post where I can do a review of your product, or I can tell folks about it. For me, I was doing recipes with products, that could be like ingredients or appliances. And so that's one option. You can pitch directly to a company. Or if you want to kind of have a middleman that can facilitate things for you, you can also join influencer marketing networks. And so they're essentially just like job boards for influencers. And you set up your account, you tell them everywhere that you have a social or digital reach. That could be blogs, social media, etc. And then you'll have job board that you can basically apply to different gigs, negotiate the pay. They'll give you all of the deliverables, and then you get paid once you create the final result.
So it sounds like once you build up a decent amount of traffic or following, that you really have so many different opportunities right now. And I've also heard from the CEO of Instagram, right? They're talking about promoting micro influencers and original content and really focusing on the more micro level. And I think that's going to permeate through a lot of different platforms. Like there's going to be more of that. We want to find someone that people trust, and the number of people that follow that person is less relevant than the depth of connection, which I'm really appreciating. But I think we're going to start seeing more and more opportunities coming up. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And one thing that I have seen, especially since 2020 and, the civil rights movement that re-emerged during that time, is that a lot of companies have made really active commitments to increasing their partnerships with influencers or creators of color. So there are now dedicated departments at places like Facebook that are working specifically with like BIPOC creators and who are actively looking for those partnerships. So leaning into your identity as a marginalized person, I think, is the smartest thing you can do as a creator right now, because people, major companies are looking to make those partnerships and have more equity in the space.
Very, very true. So what other tips do you have for someone who maybe doesn't have a blog, or maybe someone like me, I have a blog, but am I making it a huge epicenter of content? No, it's like, it's there. We typically will publish the articles based on the podcast episodes, but am I putting a ton of SEO behind it? No. What advice do you have for someone who maybe has a casual blog or not one at all, in how to kind of jumpstart it a little bit?
Yeah. Well, shameless plug, I will say, join my program, which Shannon will be linking in the episode show notes.
For sure.
But I would say, first and foremost, explore your why, right? Like whenever we want to start a creative project, I think it's important to have like, what's your overall goal with this? Do you want to help people learn how to manage their money? Do you want to help people like lose weight or, get strong or whatever? There's always an underlying mission that has to be there in order for you to really be excited about making this a long-term project. And I think it's also important to find a community of people who are, passionate about kind of the same thing that you're working on, because entrepreneurship, the creative life, can be somewhat lonely, especially if you don't have anybody around you who's doing this. And that's why the community aspect is a key component of my own program, because I know how much more fun things are when you have people to bounce ideas off of and get feedback and just get those reassurances that you're not crazy for wanting to do this stuff. Like, it's okay to be creative, right? I think as kids, like, our creative sides are nourished. Yeah, we're given all types of toys and things to do and permission. But as we become adults, it's almost just like being creative becomes taboo. It becomes something that it's like, oh, that's a waste of time. Like, go and focus on being an adult. And so I invite you to, let your creativity come back into your life, because it's going to help you discover things about yourself that you might have even forgotten that you were good at. But until you start tapping into that and exercising that muscle, you really have no idea what you could possibly manifest for yourself.
I totally agree. And you also don't know what joy it will bring you just to do it. It has to be fun. You have to enjoy the process. I would say, like, and I don't know from experience, maybe you could shed some light on this, Jannese, but like, if you're starting a blog just to make money, I feel like that's not going to work, because it's just, if it's daunting, if it's a job, it really should be kind of an outlet to have fun. And oh, by the way, because we're having fun, it's taking off. And on the back end, you can monetize it. But it has to start with it being fun and enjoyable for you.
I would 150% agree. I have always walked into a creative venture without expectations about what it could be, because then I think you kind of take the pressure off of yourself of having to be married to a specific idea of how this is supposed to turn out. And you get lost in, the goal setting and the milestones and, oh, shit, I didn't achieve this by this time. If you just allow yourself to explore and to try things and to see what works and to see what doesn't, eventually you will hit your stride. But what I do find is that a lot of people who have failed business ventures, blogs, etc., they just don't give themselves enough time to tease these things out. And I like to tell folks, I wasn't profitable for 2 years in this endeavor. So this idea that, like, if you haven't figured it out in 2 weeks, somehow it's a waste of time. Honey, you haven't given yourself enough time to figure out if it's a waste of time, okay? So give yourself the opportunity to really explore and say, I tried all the things, before you actually give up and say that it didn't work.
So for those who are looking to jumpstart their blog, right, which I think is actually the name, could you just say one more time the name of the program and a little bit of information for people on how they can hop on board?
Absolutely. So yes, it's the Jumpstart Your Blog Bootcamp, and the doors open September 14th. It is a 12-week program. So I am walking you through from inception to monetizing to beyond. We're starting with learning what you actually want to do, what's going to be your niche. Then we're talking about analytics, we're talking about the aesthetics, setting up the theme, setting up plugins, SEO, how to actually craft content, how to create a content strategy, all different types of ways to monetize your blog, how to protect your blog content from, pirates, and so much more. So this program, I'm so proud of it because it has evolved just like my journey as a blogger has evolved. And I'm just really excited to see folks, bring their creative ideas to fruition. We have people who are teaching folks how to secure scholarships so they don't have to pay for school, how to revamp their careers, how to, create gluten-free recipes, how to become a better parent. There's so many different things that you can teach people. And it all starts with you deciding, I have a message that is important to share with the world, and I am ready to do it. So if you are ready to do it, I invite you to find out more at Yo Quiero Dinero podcast.com/jumpstart your blog.
Love it. That's all going to be in the show notes, like Jannese said. And the other thing I want to mention is that even if it's not a blog and it's not a blog today, everything that Jannese teaches in this program can be leveraged for other media as well, like SEO on your podcast, on your, creating a following. All of the concepts, the foundational concepts of what she's saying will be transferable. So even if you discover through this process that I don't really enjoy writing a blog, all of the stuff that goes into a successful blog goes into any successful media. So there's just no way you don't get some type of value out of that experience, even if you decide a blog isn't right for you.
Absolutely. And I have folks who take the program and realize the blog is just going to be one component of what I'm doing. I also want to start a coaching business, and I'm going to leverage the blog to have a pool of resources there for my clients that sign up for my coaching program. Or they're like, I want to have a podcast, and the blog is going to be a place where I can have all of my episodes collated in one place. So there is not a single way to do this. I think the beauty of blogging is it's great for introverts, and it's really great for folks who just want to start getting their feet wet with the content creation process without the scary feels of like having to show up in front of people and doing videos and all that type of stuff.
I totally agree. And you're having an online presence just the same.
Absolutely.
So again, check out Jannese's link in the show notes. Jannese, thanks for hopping back on the show and shedding some light on this topic for us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.